And
Okay. As usual, the Hangout on Air says that we are live. And for those of you who might be watching this, I can't imagine, but if you're watching this live, we're doing this as a test to see if we actually get the broadcast or not. So now I'm going to go over to the event page and click the play button and see if it plays. Wow! Guess what? We are actually live, but so anyone that chimes in early gets a bonus. And I think that maybe Carlo's connection there, he's got some speakers live, perhaps?
no, what happened is I just opened you up on the cell phone.
Ah, I see. Okay, that's cool. So anyway, I think that we're functionality level at 100%.
Too cool.
Now, if we can only get this right in the broadcast and keep our folks together, we're going to have fun today. I mean, this is pretty much a loosely structured concept around positive thinking, and I gave out the URL, and a few people got to watch it in advance. I know that everybody in the green room watched it in advance. So before we get the show started, is there anything that we should consider not leaving out of today's show that you had as a side thought, or anything that watching the video brought up that you thought, oh, this would be a really good thing to add? I know that George found something from Wayne Dyer that he's going to add during the broadcast. We're going to ask him to contribute there. And if anyone else has an idea, that would be good to know in advance so we don't miss it.
Nothing specific. I think it's a free fall situation, like a feather. It'll come up during the discussions. You know.
Yes, it will. That's one thing I like about having a conversation with intelligent people. They can think on the fly.
I think that we'll find ourselves probably expounding on it rather than, you know, just working with what was there. 'Cause a lot of that material is, to me, pretty dated, and we've moved a little bit past that in some ways. So I think that we'll have things to add to it. I think that will be.
I think that we can modernize the view a bit, but I think the essential message is so timeless. I mean, it's I think because he talks about principles, not things in his era, but he's talking about principles.
Unbeknownst to some people, and nothing to do with the present company, nobody has a lock on brains. So those modismos, or those expressions, have been with us since they started writing stuff down. The phrase I like, it says, the words we repeat ossify the organs of intelligence, which is another way of saying, as you think, so you become.
Right. And I also think, Roland, to some degree, what I was hearing in that talk, why I said it was dated, is that it seems very what I want to get for me. Now, he did speak toward the end of that about service, you know, and about what you will get back will be pretty much in alignment with your service. But it was very much based on what I think the Secret did for people. I can get this, I can get that, I can have this, I can have that. When I think that spiritually we have evolved to a place now where it's more about, wait a minute, what's for the highest good of all? I don't need this much. I need this much to be, I mean, in total ecstasy and love with life. And that's enough. And then this much goes to other people.
I think I know what you're I think I know what you're getting at, because when people start talking about the acquisition of life, they are teetering on that concept of what they are fearful for not having versus what they want. There's nothing wrong with wanting stuff. There's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve. It's when you start thinking from the standpoint of the lack and the negative side of that. It's like, I want this because I don't think I can have it. Or I want this because it's been a long time and I've never had it before. I want this because I don't want to die without it. Now you're being negative about the thing that you want.
Or I want this because I think I don't have it.
Here's a thought.
I need it for some reason other than, you know, whatever.
Here's a thought I'd like to share. comes to the question, it speaks to the question of desire and the strength of that desire. For example, in the very houses that we're sitting in, we have desire to be in them. What if somebody else had a stronger desire to see a forest in the same spot?
Yes. Yes.
I have a theory there.
I'm at a place in my life right now I could easily move on. but I know that hasn't always been true. And I know that, like what you're saying, is you get attached. And I think there brings up one of the huge big pieces about this talk, I think, is that a lot of us are driven by desires that are outside of us instead of what is truly our heart's desire. Right. And that's what we need to get into with.
The expression for that is ask for what it is that you want in life, but don't be addicted to getting it.
Right. And don't be attached to it to get it.
You brought up a really interesting point, Carlo, because when two people want the same space for different reasons and different effects, then you've created a struggle, right? Because somebody wants it to look a certain way, and the other person wants it to look a different way. And if it's a struggle, it's going to be a negative thing. It's not going to be a positive thing.
No, that really wasn't where I was going with that. I'm sorry. That's not really where I was going with that. Your theory assumes that you could have a discourse about it. What I'm saying is,
I don't have a theory about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm suggesting a few thoughts, but I don't have a theory yet.
But the title of the show is "What is the Positive?"
Yes.
And you abhor the use of the word negative, although it exists. There's a positive and a negative to everything. Okay. You know,
I don't avoid the word negative at all, by the way.
Okay. All right. Then
I'm constantly acknowledging negative.
Okay. So simply put, if one person wanted a certain possession and thousands of other people wanted a national park or a beach in that same location, what happens to that energy?
That's a whole different thing again, though, because the mass attraction for a group wanting the same thing can definitely move mountains. So that's a subject we can address for another day. But a question from the field. Namaste, Roland.
The feather is full.
Did you start a bit early today? Yes, we did. And here's the reason for it. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to What is the Positive Show. My name is Roland, and I am your host for the day with several co-hosts who I will introduce to you momentarily. But the reason that we started early was we've had so many problems with comment tracker and the starting of the event going live and so forth. We've had to redirect people to new locations that we just didn't have the confidence that Google Plus and Google Hangouts and everyone else would actually conduct us effectively to be live. So I would like some comments from the stream if people are acknowledging that we are indeed live and that you can see what's going on. And apparently you have confirmed what I just asked. But anyway, I am joined in the green room today to address a really interesting subject. And before we get to the subject, let's introduce who's in the green room. So, Carlo Savio, why don't you say hi and tell people a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Carlo Savio in Las Vegas. I'm a small business management and financial consultant, and I'm looking forward to an hour with some three other nice friends and all the people that are listening in.
Thank you. And George, we're going to give you our second base here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, too?
Hi, everybody. I'm George, Central Tennessee. I'm here as resident comic and also resident cynic, I think, as well. We'll see how it unfolds.
Now, you know, you're a bit cynical, but you have fun with the cynicism, too, so I think you're just the resident comic. That works well enough. The comic works well. So now let's introduce Shira Hunt. Come on, Shira, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Shira. I'm from Las Casas, Tennessee. Snowy Las Casas today, once again. I'm a vibrational medicine teacher and therapist, and I'm here to have a great time with the other three that are in the green room. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you very much. And that's so interesting how the weather is. We're somewhat of a global project, this What is the Positive? But we definitely span the United States pretty effectively. And although you're in the snow, my wife turned the air conditioning on today for the first time in the season because we were getting a little bit warm. We're having a summer day outside. So there's the weirdness of Southern California and why so many people do like it too. Thank you. By the way, we have Nathan Siegel in the audience, and he confirms too that we are live. Thank you for that. So what I did to prepare for this particular show today was I pulled out from the archives of recorded history one of my favorite recordings. Now, before it was a recording, I believe it was a book for some lengthy period of time, but he turned it into recording, and I find it so much easier to show people, watch this, than actually it's an audio with a little freeze frame of Earl Nightingale's recording of the book, The Strangest Secret. Now, before we actually get into the subject of what's on the video and what's on the audio recording, why is it the strangest secret? And I'm just going to go dive in and tell you why. Because as many times as people hear this, or as many times as they've heard similar sayings, quotes, words of wisdom, etc., that parallel it and mirror the sentiments of this 30-minute recording, almost exactly, very few people respond to what they've heard. And they don't internalize it, and you really, what they say, get it, and internalize it, and make it useful in their being. And if they did, I believe it's a life-changing experience. So those of you who are saying that I watched the video and God, I loved it, it was great, blah, blah, blah. My suggestion is to take Earl and listen to him once a day for the next 30 days. As they say, it takes 30 days, or some people will say 21 days, to change the way you think about something. And by changing the way you think about something, you will change what you do as a result of what you think. If your thinking changes, so do your actions. So I'm focusing on this particular video and recording to change your life because he is so freaking positive. Earl Nightingale is a very, very positive person. Now, of course, he's passed away, but as far as I'm concerned, the legacy that he produced lives on tremendously. And we just talked about it. You know, he came out of the 70s and is dating himself, dating what he says, but it boils down to the principles of what he's projecting, whether it's true or not. I mean, after all, people are quoting Jesus. Well, he didn't live 30, 40 years ago. He lived a couple thousand years ago, right? So when we consider that, it's like it's not necessarily the words being spoken, it's the wisdom behind the words. And they've been retranslated and retranslated. And what this 30-minute recording by Earl is his translation of what he's gotten out of life with all the different words of wisdom from various resources. Now, we're going to be covering some quotes from various places in Earl's recording, and also other quotes from other famous people, or pseudo quotes, because nowadays no one gets a quote exactly right. But we're going to mimic other things that other people have spoken that say the same thing. And then my point of this all is, why aren't the people listening? Why aren't the masses listening to the words of wisdom? And why don't they respond accordingly? So that's the purpose of us covering this today. Do we have any initial responses from the green room people, Shara, Carlo, or George, about Earl Nightingale's recording and what you think about it?
I thought there were some really good, powerful points. I did feel that it was a little dated, and we'll touch on that as we go along, just because there's some new things I'd like to add. But I think everything that Earl Nightingale has brought, it's kind of been evolutionary for people if they can hear it. And as you say, why are people not listening? I think people are listening, but one of the pieces of the puzzle is the very mind that he talks about. And the filters and the information that is in that subconscious will oftentimes shift what you're hearing so that you don't get the real value of it. So we have to open people's minds up to see it a little differently.
I got a couple of thoughts there, Roland, as well. That I think the human being is naturally prone to complicate things, and a lot of these wisdoms are very simple. And I think there's something that goes on. Maybe it's in the ego mind that says something that simple can't work. It's not complicated enough. Dismiss. Set it aside. That's a personal belief that that's the way that the human mind appears to work. The other thing is, I think with a lot of wisdoms like this, it's not what's said about the wisdom, it's what's missed out of it sometimes. And I feel that's what's happened in this recording. It's gone so far, but there are certain elements that are not stated that are possibly crucial to making it really, really take hold and work. Anyway, that's a point for discussion.
I think those are really very important things. And if I had my druthers, which I do since it's my show, right, we can discuss what those things are and what things we can take to the next level to get people to think and actuate it and really make it practical for their own lives. If we get there, that'll be great. So, Carlo, did you have anything to add?
Not at this moment.
Okay, so we're going to dig into this. I listened to it for the 4th time this week myself, and I listened to it with the intention of drawing out some quotes from the recording that I felt were essential to what was going on. And I ended up writing 2 pages of notes from not even the first half or less than 15 minutes of the recording. And it dawned on me that just about everything Earl says is quotable. I mean, the very shortest little segments have words of wisdom. And essentially, the guy is so freaking positive that every single thing that he says comes out positive. So he exemplifies basically what I've been trying to push forward in the essence of this show, is that we need to think positively. And because of this push in my own life, that's why so many people have called me the ultimate optimist. And, gee, Roland, you're always in such a good mood. You're always smiling. How do you do it? And I'm a happy camper. And so people don't understand how I could do such a thing. And that's basically based on my view of life, for one thing, what I think life is all about, what I believe it's all about, and my focus and my goal of what I'm going to do with my life. But those things considered, that's what makes me possibly the happiest guy you know. But it didn't come just from the pure choice of wanting to be happy. It came from life experiencing and determining what it is I really wanted and really how the universe works. If you don't have an idea of where you're going, how the universe works, and what the universe is designed as, you can't really execute a plan for a goal in life if you don't understand those things. So if you have a very vague idea of what the universe is all about, you're going to have a very vague goal of what you can achieve in your life. So I know that's a mouthful, but that's what I think. And WeWake says a little something here. I wanted to plant this quote because, lo and behold, Comment Tracker is working. Okay, he says, I agree, wisdom behind the words is very important. Words themselves carry different meanings at different times. And this is something that Georgie brought up a little while ago, that when the recording of Earl in 30 minutes leaves a lot of gaps, and that is partially because in any language, when we're trying to convey a concept, the words, to some extent, lie. Not intentionally, but because everyone attaches different meanings to different words. So if someone's conveying something, they can't possibly mean the same thing to everybody listening. And they can't necessarily mean anything similar from the person that's speaking them. So the obligation on the part of the deliverer of information is really crucial, that we find a common ground in the meaning behind the words and convey them to the best of our ability, but also leave room for discussion, misinterpretation, correction, and deciding something that's common ground so that people can finally come to the terms of agreement as to what the heck you mean.
I always thought as well that it was a very good process and a good habit to follow if you're ever dialoguing with someone, to repeat back to them what you thought you heard they say, so that there's a clarity in the communication flow. And I think that's what we have the potential to do here today with anything that's said in the green room, for the people watching the show to actually dialogue and say, well, did you actually mean this or this? Because it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I really appreciate, especially like Nathan and WeWake and various people out in the audience, they come here and they contribute to the concept themselves. They bring up some really important points and ask some very crucial questions in the process. And without that, this show is just a coffee break for a few people in the green room. But when we can incorporate the thought to go beyond that at the interaction, then I'm a happy camper, because we're actually getting people to think and express what their thoughts are. So that's very important to me. Well, early on in the recording, so we'll dig into Earl now. Early on in the recording, Earl makes the conjecture and the statement, probably from statisticians that he knows in his day and era, that by the age of 65, only 5 people actually achieve success. He goes, 1 rich guy, 4 people who are, pretty fluent and they're successful and they're happy, and that's it. Everyone else is at some stage of need or poverty even in the rest of that quadrant and the percentage. So to me, the only thing that strikes me initially is that's very similar to the discussions nowadays. It says that only 3% of the population has the rich consciousness and will be actually affluent and independently wealthy and so forth. 3% of the population does that, and everyone else suffers to some degree, or essentially that. So what do you people feel about his quote from 40 years ago?
I think first, what does success mean to you? That's the biggest thing. And this is one of the pieces that I think that people so struggle with the manifestation process around, is because a lot of our perceived success these days is based on something outside of us, and it's not coming to the heart of the matter of what really would make us feel internally fulfilled, successful. And a lot of times we'll set a goal and we'll get it. We'll make that goal. And I've done this over and over and over in my life, only to find that, wow, that really didn't give me the fulfillment I thought it was going to give me. That didn't do what I thought it was going to do. So now I have to get a little more discerning, and I have to go deep inside and say, wait, what is that truth? Is that feeling of fulfillment? And what would it take me being in my world to create that? And then set the goal. So.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. Carlo, did you want to say something?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely, Shreya. Success is defined by goals that you set for yourself and not somebody else does. And the beauty is when the little girl or the little boy becomes the woman and the man that they aspired to be, for me, I consider that success. It's not about having lived through a time in my life where I had the custom-made shoes, the custom-made shirts, the custom-made suits, the top-of-the-line cars. Although I wasn't a rap singer, and with no disrespect, I said, this is so transitory, and I've ended up ending my needs and my wants less apart, and so in a manner of speaking, I'm comfortable in the body I'm living in now. Not that you shouldn't aspire to the riches beyond dreams and all that stuff, but you got to be prepared to pay for the price of them as well.
Well, the only question that comes to mind for me, Carlo, is did you indeed actually want to be a rap singer? No,
I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
So obviously I'm just
You're laughing. You don't have to, man.
very good point. Okay,
Okay.
now I can see this conversation going askew immediately.
Heading
So I'm going to
south.
drag us back to the point. George, you made a comment in the internal chat that I love, and maybe you can expound upon this, or you don't have to because it speaks for itself. But you made the chat message, living lives of quiet desperation. And you were talking about the people, the other 95%, other than the 5%. So you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to express about living lives in quiet desperation? I love the quote.
I can't remember who it was that said that. I wish I could. But that was the comment about the majority of people, that they live lives of quiet desperation, disempowered, having no awareness of who and what they really are. And I think that's the social mean, the way we're raised. And that, to me, personal observation, is the big shift that's happening now, or the potential shift, because not everybody's getting it. We're at a choice point, which way we're going to move our energies.
Very good.
Another way of assimilating that is wallowing in a delicious sea of sloppy indecision.
Ooh, that's a bit kinky, isn't it?
Yes.
I think that reminds me, and I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't find it. But the opposite, I was quoted, and I believe it was from the video. But the opposite of success is conformity. The concept that basically everyone goes on. They want to be in the in crowd. They want to get along. They want to fit in, and they be like everybody else. But they're not busy. They're so busy being that like everybody else that they're not being themselves, because they're conscious and maybe subconsciously tied up with, like, what is this thing that I should be to make people like me more, or appreciate me more, or love me more, or whatever like that, because they're measuring their life from other people. They're measuring their life accordingly from what other people think and do. And lo and behold, I haven't been much of a person to do this. So maybe that's why I'm happier. I don't know. But the concept of conformity as in opposition to success. What do you guys think about that? Because I think it's a huge one.
I do. I think it's a powerful slap to the face for a person who has not really thought about that aspect yet. But if you look at our cultural norms, I mean, that's it. Everybody get in line, put on your little uniforms, and act like everybody else. And you want to achieve that, to feel comfortable, to feel accepted, to feel like you've made the grade, so to speak. And so I do believe conformity is slow death. I mean, that's what it is. It's just slowly dying. And ultimately, I feel like that little piece that you just spoke to, Roland, is exactly what I was talking about the filters that will confuse us about what success really means to us. Is that conformity is what we are taught we should strive for in order to be valuable. And so in our mind, we think that that's what we want. And then we get there, and all bets are off. I mean, as a hospice nurse for 10 years, I've seen many, many people who had accomplished all these dreams, and as they were dying, they were sad and remorseful about not having done the things they loved, because they were conforming. They were conforming and unhappy.
There was a marvelous documentary about conformity. You remember it? Called The Matrix.
Yeah.
People thought it was a fabrication. It wasn't. It was real.
To that
One
end,
of my favorite movies.
To that end, if you step back, coming to Roland's statement about "fake it till you make it," which has validity, and that is to say, loosely translated, the Socratic philosophy says A is A and it always will be. Yet myself and many others in the 60s, as Robin Williams said, if you remember the 60s, you were not there. So in the 60s, people are running around espousing that A could be anything you wanted it to be. And we kind of floundered around for a little bit till we got to purpose. So you can visually conform and internally be liberated. The whole thrust of the life is to be liberated inside of yourself.
Yes.
It's the elan vital, the horme of everything.
Yes.
Very good.
Independent of the good opinion of others. To be exactly what you feel.
Yeah, because so many people judge other people's outsides by their own insides.
Yes.
And if they're having a less than spectacular day, a quote comes to my mind: "The purpose of life is to see each other through and not through each other."
Yes, exactly.
That's great. So many additional quotes come to mind. Someone said, you guys will correct me and tell me exactly who said this. The purpose in life for us is to walk each other home.
Same thing.
Same
Walk
thing.
each other.
And
Yeah.
we're going to get to some other quotes right away, but I wanted to bring this up. Wake says, any goal which, when achieved, defines success. Any goal which, when achieved, defines success. If it depends on external aspects, then you are setting yourself up for more stress and more problems. And that is so freaking real. And so we create our own problems by our state of mind, and that just reflects right back onto the heart and soul of what we're talking about. We become what we think about. So then Earl's primary quote from the entire book is, we become what we think about. And that's basically the premise for the principle of everything he's saying. Who else said something similar? Jesus did. He said, as you believe, so it shall be done unto you. Basically saying the same thing. We become what we think about. As you believe, in other words, you're thinking the things that you believe. When you focus on those things, so shall it be done unto you. It doesn't mean someone's going to do something to you. It means it becomes what you manifest.
Yes.
So shall it be done. As simple as that. And also Buddha's quote, and I can't find it on my sheet, but I've said it so many times I can remember it. We are what we think. All that we are arises from our thoughts. So it comes back around to this. My mom used to tell me, it happens, everything that happens to you in the world, in your experience, spiritual precedes the physical. So what happens to you in the spiritual aspect before it becomes a physical attribute in your life. And basically, the closest connector of the dots for me is when you think it, that becomes the manifestation spark process. And so if you think something, you've heard people say, well, if you even think of sin, then you've already committed it. And, weird things like that. Well, there's some truth to it, because when you think a sin, even if though you haven't done it, you're actually aligning your spiritual consciousness and your physical vibration with that sin. That makes you a sinner. Not the act of follow-up and doing it, but you're a sinner if you think that. And thinking that is also a case of the presence of the higher consciousness or your spiritual self being clouded, or judgment not being prevalent in your actual conscious experience. But if you have more of your physical and your spiritual self present in your conscious experience, that's being present. That's being here now, being what they say, being present. Okay, being in the now.
So I'd like to share something about that piece, Roland, because it sounds so simple, but one of the biggest issues is that, people will tell you right to your face, and I have clients who do this all the time, that's not what I'm trying to achieve, that's not what I want, that's not, and it's not consciously. But what people need to understand about this mind is that about approximately 96% of your daily life, of your world, is not coming from your conscious mind. It's coming from your unconscious mind. Now, I want to give you a quote really quick, because I wrote this down because I loved it. This is about the unconscious mind. One mind only, which is everywhere and everything. That is the subconscious mind. And basically what this quote is saying, and I've heard other people say this too, Neville Goddard, your imagination is God. There's the unconscious mind, your imagination, okay? And so if we begin to understand that that aspect of our mind, number one, it was set in motion, it was created, it was literally built before you were 6 years old. And then that subconscious mind becomes like a tape recorder that drives you. It is what is making life possible for you in every moment. It's why you can go get a drink of water when you're thirsty and not think about it. It's why you can drive a car and talk to somebody. It's why you can brush your teeth and not even remember you did it. It's part of your process. Your body just does, because of the subconscious mind, it does life for you. And so people a lot of times are putting out, what that subconscious does is it releases a frequency process into the universal field. That frequency process reflects what was embedded in that subconscious at a very young age, and then that's what you get back. So people are not aware of what's going on in that unconscious mind a lot of the time. So they first need to know that, but the real magic is that you can change that you have a way to affect that. And I have some really great tools that we can share in reference to that. But people first need to know that they're putting out frequencies that they don't even know they're doing a lot of the time.
So I just want to jump on this right away, because the recording of Earl's The Strangest Secret definitely reflects upon this. When he talks to of the one guy, William James, he's a philosopher. He's a psychologist. The guy was a physician, and he actually started the first psychology course in universities in the U.S., the first ever, I guess, courses in psychology. So, it's probably a century ago or something like that. But the essence of what he said, he was quoted in the Strangest Secret as this: "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind." In other words, our attitude, our point of view, the vibration that we choose can change our lives.
Right.
So I don't know if it can be any clearer than that, but that gives me a clear indication that we have some control over the outcome of what we're going to experience.
I'd love to know if anybody in the listening audience has ideas about how do you change the subconscious mind? How do you change that ideal of thought that you were just talking about? How do you perceive it differently? Because it really is a belief. It's not just a conscious idea that we speak, It's deeper than that.
So let's take this on right now and apply it to the name of this show. Because my concept is that people are going to have different philosophical ideals. And not everyone's going to agree upon how we should think, or what we should think, or how we should proceed from the concept of thought. But I do know that being positive is pretty dang universal. And that if people are just focused on being positive, asking what is the positive, and they focus on that one sentence and then follow up. In other words, be looking in the direction of what is the positive, then that alone can change the vibration of the masses.
Yes. And how do you get a person who believes that their life has been hard, that it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you got to protect yourself? How do you get them to ask the positive question, Roland? How do you get them to go there?
I would bring them on this show, sit them in front of us, and ask you guys to present to that person what is positive. Because I know that we'll have something to say.
Yeah, I got one for you. First off, understanding that subconscious aspect is that how does it get formed before the age of 6? Or there can be things that get embedded in there later too. The main two ways that they have found that the subconscious mind holds its patterns is through repetition and one through trauma. Okay, so get information set with trauma, or typically it's the repetitive stuff that you are told as a child that sets in motion. That's bad, that's bad, that's good, this is not okay, that's not okay. And so your mind goes, well, what do I do with that? When that comes up, I have to respond this way, create a response mechanism, a reactive pattern to move when that happens. And then those patterns become the guiding force to get you through your life. So now, how do we change it? How did we get it? We got it through repetition. It's like training a puppy. You have to keep bringing yourself back over and over, and this is what the positive is about, Roland. And so for a person who doesn't have that set in mind, it has to become their priority. It has to become the most important thing to them. You know, it's like when you fall in love, you get into the honeymoon effect. Oh boy, it all matters now. You know, it's like every detail matters. You want to bring the best thing forward. That kind of passion has to be behind it to begin to shift and change that mind thought.
So there are many forces counterbalancing each other as you say what you just said and give everybody an idea. Because listening to you, I can tell right off the bat, and I'm 100% in agreement with you. I know that anything can happen. I'm a believer that there are nothing but possibilities. I believe that we are all faced with challenges and opportunities. I mean, these are some of the things that I've been telling myself for several decades now, and what makes me so positive and the ultimate optimist. But the thing is, people are still ensconced with their fear and anger and worry and negativity. And part of the trick is understanding, well, when are you feeling negative? When are you worrying? When are you in fear? Well, first of all, most people live in fear. I mean, that's just a given. But is it a necessity? No. It's an option. It's a choice. And all of these things are options and choices. And George, you want to contribute something to this?
That was just the point that was going through my mind when you're talking about fear. Everything that's in whatever way we're feeling is a choice. And we're always at choice in every second of our lives. Choice, 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 choice. And that is, to me, is the critical point. We're not raised to believe that we have choice. Oh, if we get to choose, it's out there somewhere. When I get there, then I can make a choice. The rubber hits the road right here, right now, and it always does.
So I agree with you 100%. And it's not that I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I can tell you exactly what some people are thinking, and that is that okay, the choice is but I've got limited choices. I can't do this and I can't do that, and it boils down to the concept of what is your belief system? What do you think the world is designed around, and what do you think your options are? And here I am, a person that believes that all things are possible. So to me, it's all about, well, just figuring out how, right? It's not a matter of can it. And one of the quotes from oh my God, I've got so many quotes, it's hard to find everything, but it was basically, I've got to find it. I'm sorry, I've got to find it.
Too much preparation, Roland. Too much preparation.
Wait, well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, while you're doing that, let me suggest this, if I may.
Go ahead.
There's a concept that I have some support for. It says we cannot change the limitations we set on ourselves. We can only create new limitations from which we can function.
Yes. So Roland, you have a piece of magic in this portion, what he just brought up, how to change the limitations. And not even sure you know you have it, but it's one of the things that I teach. And this is a piece that I am just hungry to share with the audience because it's such an easy one. Yeah, it's such an easy one, and yet it's such a powerful one. And this is one of the things that he did not speak to in this half hour that I think people really need to help bring us the next step forward. You get frequency tracks, okay? What I do with my frequency tracks, and I teach people this all the time, I take whatever frequency tracks I need. Now, this is based on the voice print, but we're going to go past that because the information that I'm bringing you, anybody can do, and they don't have to have tracks to do it. But with my music tracks, I overlay affirmations. I overlay the language that you're talking about, that people need to speak to themselves, that when they have these limitations that Carlo was talking about, they can't get past that. They can't get past it. So you take the language that feels almost unreal to you, out of reach. No, that's really not true. I have limitations. So you create the language outside of the limitations. And right as you are falling to sleep at night, you bring that information in. There is a space. First, as you're falling asleep, you go into theta brainwave. That space we call midnight revelry. There's been a lot of research around that. And when you enter that aspect of the brain, you contact the unconscious, that subconscious mind. You come into alignment with it. The conscious goes to rest, and the subconscious becomes the driving force. Okay? And so when you are falling asleep, if you are bringing those affirmations, if you're repeating them, so you take 5 minutes before you fall asleep, and you have a list. You have a list. Write it down. Read it out loud. Be with it. And assume the feeling. Like, if you think the biggest thing you can accomplish is winning the lottery, well, you just close your eyes and go there for a minute and tell me what it feels like. Are you holding the check of the lottery winning? What does that feel like? That's what you want to assume right before you fall asleep. And you want to drift into sleep with those thoughts. When you go into midnight revelry, into that space, whatever you're thinking repeats itself for about 3 to 4 hours. This information we have from sleep studies. Okay? This is why I tell my clients and my students, put your tracks on, go to sleep to them. Just let your body absorb them. Get yourself out of the way. But if you're bringing your own affirmations, if you're bringing the very language that you think is hard for you, that you think is impossible, it'll feel like a lie at first. It will. When you're reading it, you'll be like, but that isn't true, but that isn't true, but Abraham, that isn't true, you know? But ultimately, but ultimately, what has to happen, your subconscious hears it enough times, the repetition, then the subconscious goes, well, man, they're saying this a lot. This must be true. All of a sudden, your subconscious will get it, and it will become part of the driving force. So that everything that you put into that unconscious when you fall asleep at night becomes the manifestation grounding for your next day. So if you're putting the same stuff in every single night, you're going to have the same life day after day after day.
So we're actually saying, even if you don't really believe something, you can change the thought of that disbelief by pounding it into yourself and just not spending time on the doubt side and not spending time with the negative and embracing that, but just focus on the positive and then going to sleep. And in essence, even in conscious times, focus on the positive and then go away from the concept and don't contribute a negative follow-up to it. Because what most people do is they say, yeah, I really want that red car. I love it, man. I'll be driving down the freeway and taking my trips and showing my friends. And then, yeah, but it's going to be a long time before I have it, and I don't have the salary, and I'm not going to win the lottery, and I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to have my red car. And those are the things that you're manifesting in the midst of your dream to have a red car.
Well,
so, yes, sir.
One point I think that needs to be mentioned here. One of the things my understanding is around manifestation. We always need to know how. It's nothing to do with us. That's up to the universe. How? We just have to figure out what, and then let go of it. So when we get the what, and we get the feeling of the excitement and the buzz, state it and let go of it, because that's the manifestation process. Nothing to do with us, the how, because it's coming from unknown. How can we know the unknown?
I have a lot to follow up on, but I'm going to give it over to Carlo, who's itching to say a little something.
Thank you. Just in a moderately humorous sense, if there are people out there who have difficulties considering two minds inside the same brain, the subconscious and the conscious. Imagine that your subconscious invited your conscious mind to your home. As they entered their home, they had a big bag of garbage. And as they began speaking, the conscious mind is speaking to the subconscious mind, it's throwing broken eggshells, coffee grains, orange peels on your floor. How long would you, a person, or the subconscious mind keep it there? Now, to finish, we've all run across people who have put rubber bands around their finger, and you say, what's that for? Does it remind me of something? So, what is that? I don't know, I forgot. There's another trick you can try, is when you're making this transition from putting yourself in a bigger box, and we all talk about living outside the box. Well, hell, this is the only box that I can occupy. If I try to occupy Shreya's body,
whoops. Carlo, you're muted.
Right after, if I try to occupy.
It's the creator telling me not to. Okay, the concept was we talk about living inside, thinking outside the box. Okay, so the deal is that this is the only box we have this time around. Okay, and so if I tried to live inside of Shreya, there'd be a big fight, I'm sure. Okay, so the idea is that you try to think inside a bigger box, which is yourself, to expand, to overcome what I like to call psychosclerosis, hardening of the mind.
I love it.
All right?
You got to type that into the comments,
For real, I love it.
I'm a atrocious speller, okay?
I've never heard that in school.
It's a word I made up years ago because people used to.
Put it in the comment stream so we can officially coin it for posterity.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody type it for me. All right. So what I was trying to say is, one of the things I tried when I tried to reinvent the old in a new way, which was my response to that, when I said, we all get to ourselves. Okay, people who explore themselves get to say, no, this is not working. This is, the joke is insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So as I went through that metamorphosis, and my way isn't the only way, I used to carry a little piece of paper. I'd write out my affirmation in a little piece of paper. It's too cheap to buy rubber bands. Put it in my hand. And I always had to hold on to it throughout the day. And obviously, you have to use your hand for something else. But that gave me more focus. And I'm a big fan of what Shreya talks about, midnight reverie. There are certain things that I say to me for well over 40 years before I go to bed each night. And I don't let anything else change that. And it's been working for decades. Why is it working? Because I see it evidence in things that I do and say and things that I don't do and say. So thank you.
Oh, good. I want to jump back 5 minutes because, George, you were making a point a little while ago, and I want you to review what it is you said. You had a really extremely good point that is very pertinent to what we were discussing. So I'd like to go back to you for a second. And what you jumped in on was very, very important. Can you remember your point of the whole thing?
Give me a clue.
Remind me.
Maybe it's gone forever. Okay. But basically, we were gonna. I'll watch the replay and I'll comment in the comment stream. It was brilliant, and also your psychosclerosis. That was brilliant too. So I'm going to mark that for posterity's purposes and put that in the comment tracker so that everyone can see. You can spell it the way you want to, but that's the basics of it right there. Psychosclerosis. What a great word.
Hardening of the mind.
Yeah.
So,
Roland?
Yes, sir.
It might be a good time to bring in that quote now because Shira kind of opened that doorway when she was talking about the Twilight Revelry, Midnight Revelry. It's where I felt as though Earl Nightingale didn't address when he did that half-hour reading. This is just my my interpretation or my reading of it. This is from a book by the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, Wishes Fulfilled, Mastering the Art of Manifesting. And it's a very short quote. And he says, you don't have to understand it all. All you need do is remain in a state of love while reprogramming your subconscious mind to develop the habits of a God-realized being rather than an ego-dominated person. As the Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran observed in his classic book, The Prophet, trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity.
Oh, that was really powerful. And by the way, Khalil Gibran, for 3 decades of my life, I wondered how to pronounce that name. I'm really glad that you just pronounced it the way I concluded that it was supposed to be. So thank you for that. Good quote. I want to back up even 2 chapters in what we were doing here to bring up the quote that I tried to find a little while ago, but I finally found it. I got it ready, and I posted it in the comment stream. But it was the similarity of other quotes and basically reflecting what Earl's concept is about we become what we think about. And it was written in the biblical text, and I think it's Gospel of Mark, and it's been interpreted several ways, but I liked a couple of the interpretations, so I posted them too. But the initial interpretation is, Jesus says in Gospel of Mark, all things are possible to him that believeth. And then he starts his quote by saying, if you can believe. The concept of some of the translations is, what do you mean if you can? Anything is possible if a person believes. And, you know, reflecting a different attitude in various impersonations of what they think that Jesus did. But he's basically saying, what do you mean if? What do you mean if? You can do anything that you want to. Anything, all things are possible. Now, either Jesus was not lying, or we don't have to believe anything else that he said. Quite simply. But if you're going to say that you're a Christian or a follower of the concepts, or even align yourselves to what you derive as the truths that Jesus said, start with that one. All things are possible. And if all things are possible, then it's just a matter of figuring out how. And one of the things that we're figuring out, especially in this session today, is so much is based on attitude and the polarity of thinking, reaching for what's positive, looking for the solutions, not the problems. Quit staring the problems in the face, turn away from the problem and find the solution.
I think that's one of the things, too, is that our sensory perceptions, because of the way we've been entrained, our sensory perceptions will, man, they'll knock us down every time. You know, it's like that whole, yeah, but this is all I got. Yeah, but this is what I can get. Yeah, but I don't have a car. Yeah, but I don't have a job. Yeah, you know, and it's like, yes, I hear that. That is the 0.01%. That's the manifested stuff. But you know, substance doesn't come from substance. You know, substance comes from the nothingness, from the ethers. It is created from the thought. You know, the thought can be anything. Anything. It is boundless. And people don't get that piece. They're so blinded by what they've been taught, you know, and what they're told. And so we got to get outside of that piece. We have to begin to understand that our sensory perceptions will blind us to what the possibilities are. So every time that they come up and start to talk to us, we have to say, yeah, I know. Okay, so I hear you, but that's just a little piece of it. I want the big thing. I want it all. So I'm gonna step outside of that, and I'm gonna bring myself an affirmation. I'm gonna tell myself the truth of it. I can accomplish anything that I set my mind to. And the truth of the matter is, people are doing that every day. You know, if you don't pick something, what is already in the subconscious is what you get. It's what you're manifesting. It's what you're creating in every moment. So look at your world. This is what's in your subconscious. You don't like it? Get some new language. Change it up.
Change it up, new language. Great advice. Some of the things...
Oh, sorry, Rob.
Go ahead, George.
There's just one thing there that it makes me think about. We've been raised in a technological age that relies still, unfortunately, on Newtonian physics. In other words, the five senses rule. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. And there to me is the one element that culturally and sociologically we're missing when we start to think about manifestation. Because if I can't detect it with my five senses, it doesn't exist. Which we said before, seeing is believing. It's the other way around. Believing, you put the fuel in the fire first, then you get the heat out. Not when the fire gives me the heat, I'll put fuel in. It doesn't work that way.
Very good. And, this is encroaching upon the base beliefs on what I think about my own life. Because, for one thing, it starts with the concept that I do believe. Because I do believe, and I have certain beliefs about my life, I no longer fear death. I don't live in fear, which makes me basically a courageous traveler, or seemingly courageous, because I'm not challenging something that I don't believe I can do. It's far more courageous to take on a challenge when you think that it's got this much possibility of being accomplished. That's pretty dang courageous. But when you blatantly go forward because you believe anything's possible, that's a horse of a different color. And people will look at me and say, oh, wow, the guy is really courageous. I really appreciate his attitude. Man, he's so brave. And actually, I just believe that I'm safe. Because of my view of what the universe is presenting to me as evidence for my life, I believe that I'm safe. And that I believe that I have the ability to create differently from what I have done into this point, which gives me hope that I can change what I am and change my experience. One of these days I'm going to walk again. So.
Yes, and I'm ready for that, buddy. Bring it.
Yeah. So these things are possible.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking to, Roland, what you have, I think is really powerful. A lot of people don't have it, Right. And I think the first thing is just for people to just breathe this in. Particle comes from wave. Manifestation comes from the invisible. So that's the first thought change that has to happen. Okay? We're not going to get the car from the dealer. We get the car from the revelation within that we can have it, that it's ours. That's where it comes from.
Yes.
And so for people to first embrace that piece,
For those people, to follow up on this, let's dig into the beliefs for a second. For those people who believe that in a God, whether it's a Christian God or a Muslim God or a Hindu God, I don't care. If you believe in a God, I ask you this: would God create a universe, a heaven on earth, or just a world of experience where we are committed to conflict, suffering, torture, all that negative conflict, poverty? Would he create that on purpose? Right. Alternately, would he create a world that is an option for us to create within that world, sickness, conflict, and poverty if we want to? The answer is yes. But that was not the plan. The plan was to set us free from the very start and let us create. And that's what all this is about, is learning how to create. And understanding that we are the creators of our own existence and have the power to do so as gifted by the inception of our creation. We have never been without heaven on earth. We have never been without the miracle of life. We have never been apart from God. And if you start wrapping your brain around that and you figure, oh, well, I could have a bad experience in my human life. Yeah, well, that's your fault. That's what you created.
The choice.
But as long as you're living, breathing, whatever, you have the option to change that. So start assuming a little bit of power and control over your life, a little bit of responsibility, and a little bit of awareness, and it really will go a long way.
And a little bit of change in your point of perception, because what we perceive as negative may be just an opportunity in workloads, and we don't see it that way.
Very true. Go ahead, Carlo.
For those who might be listening, who say, as Shira said, yes, but when there will be obstacles in your way, and when you see obstacles in your way towards your goal dream, then that is the way. You just can't blindly say, I want to win the lottery, I want to win the lottery. First, you got to go down and buy the ticket. All right, so when there's obstacles in your way, that is the way, and you deal with them. And then, and as the expression we've all heard, that which doesn't kill me makes me stronger. But what everything has been spoken about in this episode is true. Is that we can think. A phrase I like is imagination. It's another way of saying Shira's midnight rivalry. Imagination is when you put images in your head to think and believe above your own reality.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Now that's the perfect example of thinking outside a box.
No, no, sir. Let me push back in a humorous way.
Okay.
I didn't tell my neighbor you got to do exactly like me. I didn't tell my neighbor on this side outside my box. I got to be like me. I took my responsibility for myself by dealing with myself at multiple levels. That's
yes,
why.
But I'm not even talking about you, Carlo. I'm talking about every single person on Earth. If they think on the edge of their imagination and expand that imagination to be their field of creation, they are thinking outside the box.
Let me share with you.
Okay.
All the things that you're saying are bang on 100% in my enthusiasm. But let me take you on a little trip. Those of us who think that there's this negative stuff, when you get in an airplane and you ascend up the clouds in the middle of the winter, the sun is shining. And it's like, wow, it's a beautiful day up there. It's we who go below the clouds. I can't do this, I don't have that, I can't do this, I can't get that. They don't like me, this person likes me. That's all inside the same box. You know, maybe it sounds like broken glass and broken metal pieces rattling around in our brains, but we keep doing that negative self-talk that inside that box that sets the limitations on that. The whole beauty behind self and God realization is to be liberated. That's it. The
same thing in the comment stream there said mentioned.
Yes, and what the phrases you know about anything you can think of. What he was referring to using the imagery, and I'm not a Bibleist, that I and the Father are the same. The only way through him is through me. And so you going through yourself, through him, and whoever that him or her is for you, whatever trips your trigger, that's how you become God realized. Nobody has a lock. Nobody has a lock on spirituality.
Agreed. And I'll be hanged up on the rafters in the first house that captures me if I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. that whole concept of no one cometh unto the Father but by me is mistranslated and misconceived and definitely mistaken, I believe. And one of the things is when no one cometh unto the Father but by me. If you don't merge with Christ consciousness, then you don't have Christ realization. So if you're really going to understand your divinity, which we've covered in a different episode a couple times back, divinity implies godliness. And if that's the case, we merge in our consciousness with God when we merge in our divinity. Mm-hmm. So it's one and the same. And Absolutely. You cannot merge with God unless you come to Christ consciousness. We are talking about one and the same. Because Jesus said, the Father, I and the Father are one. So does anybody get this equation or not? I mean,
Absolutely.
It's very simple. As math goes, it's very simple.
May I suggest, without trying to annoy anybody's lifelong images, okay, that expression about the only way has been written repeatedly for thousands of years. 6,000, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000. And it's the same. In other words, The reality is the same. Is to go through that metamorphosis. It's called the transmogrification of the soul. And I don't want to get crazy here.
Yeah. But your point is well taken. I think that people have used it for years to control others with the concept of you've got to come to Jesus, you've got to come to Jesus. And then they extrapolate out, well, what is coming to Jesus? Well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. And that has nothing to do with being born again and nothing to do with coming to Jesus or achieving or merging with the concept of Christ consciousness. It's all a misnomer. But
well, the idea of being born again is simply a way of saying become dead to the world, meaning that it's not a land of milk and honey.
Well, I think it's more than that, and becoming dead to the world is partially detaching yourself from all the human elements and the wrong definitions of what reality is. Because I think that we have a misconception of what reality is. And so when we become dead to the world, suddenly it's like, oh, wow, I guess I was wrong about that. And we're going to discover that's the case about a lot of things. And we're going to also discover that, I guess, because I just wanted to believe this. And whatever you want to believe, that's your reality. So the question is not what you're going to experience in this life. The question is, what do you want to experience? And the question below that, and I'm supporting the whole thing, is what do you want to create? Yes. Because we were created, from the biblical standpoint and from many creation angles, we were created in the image and likeness of God. And if that's the case, what would he intend for us? To be here creating more of his universe. So that's part of our job, right?
Yes. I'd like to put a challenge out to anyone who ever listens to this show.
Listening to this show is a challenge.
In and of itself, you got it. It's all good. Yeah. But here's the challenge. Have you got 5 minutes a day? And what is 30 days out of your lifetime? You know, it's a little bitty piece. So take the time to create some really new prospects for your world. Something that feels unattainable, maybe even, you know, but at least start with some small steps of something that you think you don't have, that you want to create in your world. Write those affirmations down and do that 5 minutes before you go to bed for 30 days. Just do it for 30 days and then contact us. Let us know what happened. Be diligent, be real, be honest and in integrity with yourself. And do it every single day and then watch what happens.
And start each one with I am.
And put your hand on your computer and say, I will.
So I have a challenge for us in the green room.
Uh-oh.
Next week's session is pretty much rote. It's already determined as to what the subject is. But the following one, the week after the 16th, let's do the what is the positive challenge. And we will show people what they're going to do to set this up. And for 30 days, we're going to have them figure it out what they're going to do to try to accept the challenge of the 30 days. Okay? That's our job. And we're just about time to wrap it up. Anyone want to say a last few words?
Yes, I'll give you one. And this is to everyone. When you look in the mirror, say to yourself, I am bigger than I recognize and know. And that's not physically, that's energetically.
Exactly. And the I am is an important part. That's going to come into play. And well, it comes into play all the time. But in 2 weeks, when we set the people up for the challenge, we'll bring that up again. The I am is huge. And absolutely. So I had a couple last quotes from the audience. Actually, it's from the same guy. And I wanted to bring this up first. That WeWake said, I think one of you said, how should not really be our problem. And I want to follow up on that because that was the exact word that you said, George, that had me off and running on a completely different concept. Because the hows, there's a current person in the law of attraction field who says all the time, he describes it as the cursed hows. And the reason that they're cursed is that because we don't know enough to be able to answer the question how. There's millions, billions, gazillions, infinite number of ways that the how could be satisfied. But we only know what we know. Well, so how do we know better than the universe? How? No, we don't. And so, George, when you say you let the universe figure that out, and all we have to do is keep on creating the essence of the achievement of what our goal is, and that is how we create, and that is utilizing the godliness of the universe and everything as a fulfillment center for what we create. And at least that's how I see it, and I think it corresponds to what you're getting at. So the cursed house. Mike Dooley, thank you very much for that. We'll be actually using some of his quotes in sometime in the near future. And then the last thing from WeWake is this, and he confirms, imagination is God.
Yes.
And I'll let people wrap their brains around that. I have to agree, and it's pretty good stuff. And anyway, we got off and running on a really cool subject, all because of Earl Nightingale, and nearly half a century after he published this recording, I hope some people got some good vibes and good wisdom and a good sense, and maybe even an inspiration to take their life in a new direction. So we're going to say goodbye to the people in the green room, and we're going to say goodbye to the people in the audience. I really appreciate you commenting. If you enjoyed the discussion at all, share it with a friend if you would, and we would really appreciate it. The more people we have joining in, the more fun we're going to have. So thank you very much, and good day from What is the Positive. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.